University in Nepal. It's the eminent university. They have come all the way from Nepal to share their thoughts about the Nepal earthquake and what happened then. So I'll pass on the mic to Professor Finster.
Thank you, Anirban. As an introduction, I wanted to speak about the 4 disasters that Nepal had. First of all, there were the 2 earthquakes. On the 25th of April and the 12th of May, we had 2 devastating earthquakes, 7.8 and 7.3. But that was only the first disaster. The second disaster happened when the monsoon hit Nepal. And the Himalayas are very high, so all the rain that comes down, more than 3,000 millimeters a year, that means that the moment the geology is disturbed and you have cracks in the soil, you have liquefaction of the earth, you have cracks, you have landslides. So that was the second disaster that hit Nepal after the earthquakes. The third disaster was a political disaster. On the 25th of September last year, the border between Nepal and India got blocked. I'm not going to go into politics, but it was very nasty for the Nepalese. Basically, it meant that the prices shot up of the gas and of the petrol about 300%. So that was very, very uncomfortable. Normal goods, the prices shot up about 40 to 80%. And then the last disaster, disaster number 4 that happened, because the geological experts have predicted that the energy release of the earthquakes has not completely cracked the tectonic plates, there is still energy to be released. So that's a threat. There is another earthquake to come. So that means that people who normally would go to Nepal, tourists, visitors, people who enjoy mountaineering, the beautiful hospitality and the country and the people of Nepal, they are not sure whether they should go to Nepal. This is a very important source of income for the country. So after 4 disasters, the United Nations asked me if we could somehow, as an academical institute, which September University is, if we could help out with something that was very, very difficult. Because when the houses come down in the earthquake and you need to build it up, you need to think about your ring beam, you need to think about your tie beams, you need to make a structure that is earthquake resistant. But what if the land is gone? You're not able to rebuild on the place where your grandparents lived because the land is gone, because of landslides, erosions, possible future threats, etc. So they literally asked Sept University and our partners from Tribhuvan University. In a nutshell, Tribhuvan University is the best university of Nepal. That's in a nutshell. To collaborate and see if we could work to make one model for one village that had hit by the earthquakes and where the issue of land and non-availability of land was there. Because normally what you do is that if the land is not there anymore, you relocate the people. But if you look at history, 95% of the relocation projects are unsuccessful because you take people away from their land, from the place that they know, from their livelihood, etc., etc. So we said we need to find out something better. And this is something that we will discuss this evening, amongst others. I'm going to introduce some of the people who are here tonight. I will start with our guest. We have Professor Sudha Shrestha from the Tribhuvan University. She's leading the urban planning unit, which is called CURP in Nepal, and it's a tough job. But madam, I've been lucky that I was teaching with her in 2013. Very, very happy that you're here. We have Professor Ajay planner, architect, thinker, very, very good in the field. We've interacted with them. I see 3 of our master students who were also involved, Anirban, Amit and Pranjal. They also know how Ajay Lal and Professor Sanjay Uprety, architect from SPA, but also sociologue. The human factor is extremely important, and planner. Then I see Faculty of Technology Professor Vyas, Angela. Vyas? Angela. On the phone I said Anjali, and she said, no, that's not me. Thank you for coming. We have our senior professor, C.N. Ray, from the Planning Department. We have Bikramjit from the Faculty of Architecture, does his PhD. And Mary Jane from the International Office, Arthur Duff, etc. I see many, many of you here, and I'm very happy. From our neighbors, we have Neil Kamal Champagain from Ahmedabad University. He specialized in the heritage cell, looking at, and normally in these situations, culture is always at the bottom. They're the last to be addressed. But in Nepal, actually what happened was unbelievably beautiful. The people of Nepal, when it happened, I'm not going to talk about the government of Nepal because they are a little bit slow, but the people of Nepal immediately reacted. They saved their monuments, they saved their deities, they saved their sculptures immediately. And normally in these situations, a lot of looting, a lot of criminal behavior takes place. 3 hours of power cut in a western city, and immediately we become Lord of the Flies. We become very strange species of Homo sapiens. This did not happen in Nepal. So the true heroes, I think, of getting back on track are the Nepalis themselves, including Shrestha, our master student here at CEPT University. Anyway, I'm going to hand off the microphone to Professor Sanjay Uprety. Give him a warm applause. And the idea is that we do 2 small presentations of about 15 minutes, and then I think the second half is more of a dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Anna, and professors and students present here. I'm not going to talk about what we did together with CEPT, but talk about the overall reconstruction approach Nepal has taken, which is still in its infant stage, and a lot has to be done. And I would try to browse through some of the policy implications which have been hindering Nepal to take its reconstruction approach in a speed that is needed, which is not happening now. And I'll try to focus especially on housing and resettlement, and other references would come as a supplement to the main topic here. Anna reported a different Richter scale, but then this was also reported when we were there witnessing this earthquake. In fact, I broke a rib when I was trying to get away from my house. So it was April 25, 7.9 Richter scale, May 12, 6.9 Richter scale, and human loss over 8,000 people. These are some of the pictures that would be useful to remind the horror of the earthquake we had. Heritage site being demolished. This is located in one of the World Heritage Site. And this is the Langtang area, rural area. Many rural areas got completely demolished. This will give you some idea of the scale of the devastation. Over here, something like 173 people perished. This is another heritage site. These are some of the areas, the central and up north, the most badly hit areas, crisis hit areas, and hit with heavy losses. So these are some of the, if you see it, almost entire country was affected in some ways. And a brief look at the losses or the impact we have can be seen in the context of a loss occurring something like 25% in productive sectors, infrastructure sectors 10%. Social sectors got hit the largest, including housing sector, which is 86% of that total 58% there. And there are certain cross-cutting areas which have been not detailed out properly, but then it has been given into PDNA report that National Planning Commission prepared earlier. So coming back to housing sector, the scale of effect, if you look at it, this almost 7.5 thousand houses got affected. Fully damaged are like almost 500,000 houses. This is almost over 2 times bigger than the Gujarat earthquake if you see in terms of the scale of effect here. And then we have now the post-disaster recovery frameworks, which has a very good vision to spring back to life. It says establishment of well-planned, resilient settlements and a prosperous society. And it has many strategic objectives, mainly 5 strategic objectives. I will not go through that. And it has this reconstruction and rehabilitation policy, the key elements which concerns the housing. It says reconstruction of housing and cultural heritage site which supports owner-driven housing reconstruction. In theory, it says so. Restoration and retrofitting of public and historical buildings. Similarly, relocation and land use, mostly to be in situ reconstruction. And also it talks about relocation nearby the devastated settlement or within or nearby district. So it also has settlement relocation issues there. Almost 20,000 houses needs to be relocated. That is what can be gathered from PD in a report. And it also says it will introduce land policy for land readjustment plan. So it means we do not, till now, we do not have any land use policy for land readjustment or this relocation or resettlement policy there. So we still lack that policy here. And also engaging the community, private sector, NGO and INGO, mainly development partners. It aims at mobilizing larger resources for reconstruction. But this is what has been the impediment in speeding up the reconstruction process, because the policy is silent in many areas as to how to include this development partners into the reconstruction process. And providing financial assistance that government intends to provide to the affected population, and restoring employment and livelihoods, short-term and long-term strategy it has, and also the improvement of data collection and public information systems so as to ensure the real affected would get the benefit, and then compliance and monitoring. These are few key elements there. Now I would like to throw upon some light on some approaches that I have come across, which is used, which is not in big scale, small scale reconstruction approach has been, they are being used, but it is not upscale. So let us start with the government guideline here. Government initially started with this design-based approach of reconstruction, where they came up with like something like 16 to 18 models of housing, so that people can use these use these models to do owner-driven reconstruction. But some of the districts where I was training this district disaster recovery committee, and when I was interacting with a lot of community there, they were finding it very absurd to use these models, because they thought these models did not really cater to their demand in terms of in terms of the space requirement, in terms of the construction technology and local materials that can be used. So there are various problems they cited, and none of these communities are using these models. Very few houses, very few owners have used these models, but without the adequate safety measure, because there is no monitoring or support system in place. So this has posed limitation rather than contribution to owner-led reconstruction drive. because these houses were designed by NPC not on the based on, it was not based on the typology study of the housing types that we have in the rural areas. Similarly, owners could not make any changes according to the space requirement, especially the women were reporting that. So it was not being used. And then we have this NGO-led reconstruction approaches. This is a Help Nepal reconstruction approach where they try to transfer technology to the these house owners, and they were doing it with community participating in it. So this has been done, but in a very small scale. So there are some materials being made, this compressed earth brick, and the technology being transferred here. Then we have NGO-led in situ reconstruction in Nepal. This is a reconstruction that was carried out by Dolma Foundation, Briddim, a village of 50 to 60 houses, around 400 people, Buddhist, Tibetan residing there. And this was done by Dolma Foundation, and one of our colleagues was involved in doing this reconstruction work, and I was helping him to document it. So I'll just go through this to show how this reconstruction is taken at the level of NGOs. This is the tragedy that has happened. You can see the devastations of this small community up in the hills. This rebuilding approach to community participation at its basic approach there. It was very tedious and extensive. So first the foundation, with the help of professional architect, tried to prepare the inventory at site, and then the study of architecture and setting from the remains and the locals. They were trying to redraw the existing situation, because these settlements did not have any records of their houses in terms of drawings and other facilities there, and they were also trying to provide them alternative approach for earthquake resistant construction in the vernacular way. So this was basically aimed at retaining vernacular architecture, because this is located in one of the most famous tourist area, and the livelihood is really dependent on tourism industry. So this was the kind of settlement existing there. So the architect inventoried the existing situation, where site topography and salvaging the debris and safeguarding the livelihood aspects were studied, and few plans were drawn there. And the architecture of a small dwelling were studied. For example, window, door opening sizes, internal wall paneling, floor separation through planking. So there was some strength that was shown because of the inside wood planking. Some of the houses were intact, some were partly demolished, and all the walls had relatively very large thickness. So some part of it were retained and some part were damaged there. And there was this public building where they pray and do community activities, and it was also studied. And a rebuilding plan was drawn. And this review of one of the important things they did in this was salvaging the debris, where this aggregate was very scarce. So we tried to use the existing stones to make aggregates, and we used that for the construction of the building there. So some of the tools that was used to inventory the building's condition there. And earthquake safety measures were introduced in building construction. So you can see some of the buildings being already constructed here. There are altogether 34 houses that we are trying to build in first phase there. So this is another house that is being built with earthquake resistant safety measures there. So this approach at Briddim basically looked at building as it is, where it is, and responsible material sourcing, manage the debris and add a bit from the quarry. So it was, the salvage was managed to get some aggregates there, and good construction practices, this earthquake resistance building techniques were introduced. Climate change adaptation was done for landslide, debris management, as I said it, water and sanitation, it's like made available for perennial availability was made. Livelihood was based on tourism, and organizational operation was NGO led. So from this, some of the issues that we came across was this prototype. As I said earlier, prototype lacked flexibility in terms of variation in housing typologies, space requirement, technology transfer and availability of local material. Because of the use of the prototype made by government, this technology transfer was difficult because people were compelled to use the typology prepared by the government, which was not very pragmatic. Similarly, the prototypes posed impediments because financial assistance is not given to the owners unless the model design is used as specified. So if they did not use this model, then the promised amount, 200,000 rupees, would not be given to the owners. So people are waiting, and people could not build this house according to the prototype, and they could not do other way around also because the financial assistance would not be given to them. If they want to change according to their needs, then they need to go through the municipal approval or VDC approval process, which is impossible looking at the existing infrastructure available in rural areas. So the prototype poses impediments because of weak monitoring, and the engineers that are employed to look after this are very fresh and not very confident to take a project of this sort. And coming back to resettlement, reclustering, relocation, some of the settlements, as Professor An was also telling earlier, around 20,000 houses needs to be relocated now. And we do not have, this PDRF acknowledges that we do not have land use policy for the readjustment or relocation. We have a pretty good experience on readjustment planning in the form of land pooling, but that cannot be adopted straight away to the rural reconstruction sites because of the different context it has. So, but then people are very willing to go for this reconstruction and resettlement and building back better. But and they also wish government would invest in public infrastructure so that when they do this reconstruction of the settlement, they would also get better livelihood opportunities. So when we had a lot of meetings during our field visits, they were asking how to go about it and how can government actually come into partnership with people and explore some of the existing development potentials through the process of reconstruction. So people are very willing to participate, but there seems to be a impediment which is not allowing to build a partnership with the people there. So what needs to be done is reformation of existing legal provisions and reformation of existing institutional provision, mainly land revenue office, cadastral mapping office, because in villages a lot of people have land, but they did not have they would not have landowner certificate because of the cultural and social situations there. Similarly, you have land pooling policy, but it is not friendly to the reconstruction, and PDRF promises to revise it, but it has not been done so far. And people also need to be sensitized. We do not have any sensitization policy till now. So, focus required in strategy for technology transfer and design-based approach to speed up the owner-driven safe reconstruction. That is what we have sort of concluded. An urgent study of area-specific housing typology. This is very important because you cannot come up with these design-based approaches without studying the available housing typologies. There could be I have a feeling that there could be over 100 typologies that exist in the affected areas. So you just can't sit in the center and make some prototype and ask people to build it. Similarly, adopting development partners friendly reconstruction policy. Now, if development partners are not used in the reconstruction process, if they are not allowed to mobilize resources, then the reconstruction will be a pipe dream for Nepal. So, and they have a policy, but it is not friendly in the sense that development partners cannot actually spend on housing. Government has not asked them to adopt some villages for the reconstruction. So that kind of policy impediments still exist. And another aspect that you can see is there are many villages where recluster reconstructions are going on. It does not have a village level or local level or plans, either physical development plan or periodic plan, because we use periodic plan for local area development, and we do not have that. And we feel that it is important to have this quick strategic planning so that the reconstruction plan is placed in a context. So that is also needed. So with that, what Institute of Engineering is doing, I would like to throw. I have like 3 slides left here. So Institute of Engineering has been working on this development of debris block for the technology transfer. Similarly, GI wires containment technology, which has been well worked out in Institute of Engineering. Similarly, we have this compressed soil earthen block that we have been working and testing. But upscaling this and government sector adopting this technology still needs to be worked out. But we have many researches going on there. Similarly, we have this demo building built at IOE, and as we are also working with Safety University for this recluster plan of Majigao, which would ultimately produce a guideline for rural reconstruction there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Can I request Professor Sudha Shrestha to come to the stage? Also give her a warm applause.
Good evening, professors and students. Today, actually, I am focusing only on this urban and traditional settlements, because Professor Sanjay has already covered with this rural part, and I am focusing only on traditional settlements, even focusing on SANKHU. It's a traditional settlement in Kathmandu Valley. And I'm talking about the importance of Newari architecture and the resilience of this disaster resilience of this architecture. Okay. Actually, we know Professor Sanjay has already covered the casualties and injuries of whole Nepal aspect. I am talking about Kathmandu Valley only, okay? 1,700 casualties and 13,000 injuries, 700-2,400 collapsed houses. That is from Ministry of Home Affairs. Several traditional buildings and monuments, world-renowned Newari architecture, traditional towns were literally collapsed in Nepal Earthquake 2015. And in this respect, Bungamati, Khokana, these are traditional small towns surrounding Kathmandu Valley, and they were virtually collapsed. And the SANKHU, which is in Kathmandu Valley, suffered a lot. It collapsed more than 90% traditional buildings. And this earthquake gave one such message that traditional buildings has no seismic capacity And these traditional buildings are not useful and not safe against earthquakes. That type of message given by this earthquake, because even 9 by 9 inches columns with 4 stories and constructed in a very slow place didn't collapse, didn't damage. Actually, that is not true, but still people, almost majority of people have that type of perception now, because earthquake damaged traditional buildings more than these concrete buildings. Although concrete buildings also damaged, but in compared to these traditional architecture building, outstanding, beautiful, unique architecture, those buildings were mostly collapsed. Actually, this study we have done through CURPS also, Center for Urban Planning Studies, where I used to head. I am the head of that center. And what happened was, when I visited that place, SANKHU people were very active that time. And the group of youth, and they have one committee, they made one committee for restoring those, very artistic elements of those buildings. And they have collected lots of such type of elements, windows, doors, and many others. And they said they are very, very afraid of losing these things, because normal people, they thought that now we need concrete building, we don't need such type of traditional building, and that traditional building are against of earthquake. Why should we need to build those earthquake? And even people say like that, oh, this is very good opportunity that we can build now new houses, a new type of modern buildings with concrete. And because of that, we have started to study here. And this study was supported by Minister of Urban Development and also the Asian Development Bank. Actually, SANKHU is very interesting, very beautiful, ancient town, 12.5 hectares. That traditional ancient town was now converted into municipality. It is called Sankharapur municipality, with incorporating few wards of that village development committee. But we have concentrated our study into this traditional town only. Okay, and this traditional town has 4,333 population through this 2011 census, but by this time it is much more larger than 2011 census. And town was incorporated with 3 VDCs, different toll name. Pukhulachi. It is not very important that which toll is that, but still Pukhulachi, Suntol, and Vajrayogini, these 3 village development committees comprises of this traditional core SANKHU town. This is core historic area, and what I have already said, that it is became now municipality. And it has its ancient, essence, ancient, very, it was flourished at that time. Like Nepal, there is a trade route. From Nepal, people used to go to Tibet and also used to come to India. And from Tibet, they bring different things to sell India. And from India, they used to take, this is developed as a trade route. And SANKHU was the trade post, where people used to go stay one night and go to Tibet, and when they come from Tibet, they pay tax and things and stay one night there and come back. It means it was very flourished in ancient time. And SANKHU began to lose their competitive advantage because, in 1950s, that trade route had been damaged. People do not go to Tibet because it was closed. And also in Nepal, there was construction of infrastructure, road was constructed, and the highway, Orniko highway, from Kathmandu to China border, that road was constructed, which was a little bit far, it was far from SANKHU, so it became degenerated. Nepal, in Kathmandu, SANKHU, and Sankrapur is now here, SANKHU is here, and Kathmandu, these are three VDCs here. Okay, I can show another slides. SANKHU is here and Kathmandu is here, okay, in such a distance. And when we talk about SANKHU, very interestingly established, very interestingly formed, a compact settlement strongly motivated by concerns to preserve fertile land. It surrounding fertile land, and in the middle it is a compact settlement, but with very interestingly arranged open spaces. It has very interesting unique form, brick paved streets, houses of rather uniform height, seldom existing 3.5 stories, with only very interestingly narrow lane, and it opens with very interesting wide courtyards and open spaces. Decorated wooden lattice windows, carved doors, eaves, balconies, etc. there. It is really, really very, very interesting, even for architects, planners, and others as well. Settlement pattern is like a conch shell. That's why named as SANKHU, because in Nepali, maybe it is in Hindi also, Shankh is conch shell, which gives sound to Vishnu or something. Anyway, this settlement is formed like a shankh, okay? And very interesting lattice windows, doors, and such type of things we can see there. Such type of buildings were there. And also gates. Very interestingly, SANKHU has 8 gates in the past, but somehow 5 was remaining. And that 5 also, they have designated different activities for different gates. Like bride gate, entry of bride inside SANKHU, daughter's gate, farewell to daughters from SANKHU, like goddess gate, bring inside the Vajradogini, which is very, very popular goddess, inside the SANKHU, and gate for dead bodies. Those who die, they will bring from only that gate. And very interestingly, they have organized and managed this city, this town. One of the gate is this. After devastating, even that gate is still standing. SANKHU pattern. Open spaces, very interestingly, these roots for even goddesses, roots for dead body, and primarily this type of, these are all roots. Private open spaces, even public open spaces, these are all buildings. Very interestingly laid this SANKHU. Actually, these buildings are mostly from Malla period, that is 1200 years back, from 1200 years, okay? It is, the architecture belongs to Malla period. The craft and architecture and culture representing, which began around the beginning of 15th century and survived the beginning of the Shah period, but rapidly fading during the Rana period, because this is, of course, I brought from the traditional architecture book, which was written by Wolf Korn. Traditional Newari houses like this, they have 3 stories, and attic 1, 4 stories. This is also like this, Newari architecture. And architecture, if we talk about foundation, they laid stone, and then on top of stone, they have brick. And they do not have damp-proof course as such in those days. And you know, if you talk about wall also, these are sun-dried bricks, and external part they have burn brick, very interestingly laid. You know, this area, if you see, you don't have any mortars here. Brick is little bit slope, so that mortar is inside and outside. It's like a very interesting facade. And columns, very interesting and very strong joints. These joints are very strong. And floors also like this, wooden planks and mud plasters. Doors and windows, I have said you, very interestingly carved windows and doors. Roof also very interesting, pitch roof, a more or less 30-degree flat, red tiles, and widely used this type of roof. These architecture are very resilient, because why we have said this, actually we haven't studied the structural and seismic strength of traditional Newari architecture, but few organizations are still studying and testing the structural things, okay? And few have already completed maybe by this time. And you know, if we look accordingly, which we need for earthquake safety configuration, it has very regular size, length to breadth, rectangular mostly, although we have to have square here, we need to, but we have rectangular shape. Opening, double framing of openings, wall thickness is very thick, so that it will not fall, you know, as such. Wooden bands will be there, and also, you know, these mostly we found in temples, but still palaces also we can get such type of wooden bands, horizontal and vertical as well. Floor height, number of stories, not very many, and vertical post and corners. All these things are there in architecture of this traditional architecture. And we have studied here in SANKHU that more than 90% buildings were damaged there, totally collapsed. Although this, you know, like we have taken only from those core area, not from all municipal areas. 90% houses were damaged. Settlement is this, and we have studied that red color houses. And we have taken few from literature that INSET also did on same, you know, research. They did survey, and from that survey report, that 70% traditional buildings were collapsed, 24% modern buildings, 1% neoclassical, and 5% other type of buildings were collapsed there. Few houses collapsed, very, you know, damaged very much, that we couldn't imagine. Of course, Gujarat has also such type of experience, we know. We don't need to explain about the earthquake. You might experience that terrible, you know, very terror earthquake. We also face like that, but still we lost a lot, like you also lost that time, and we need your suggestions to, you know, come up with good solutions. What happened was damage situation 1 to 5th put, and also how many traditional houses were collapsed, how many Rana style buildings, neoclassical, how many RCC buildings collapsed, we have studied there. And it is, yeah, same thing. Collapsed buildings and buildings before and after. This building was like this before, after this was this. Very beautiful architectural elements became this type of damage. These are the same. And we asked people whether they like to construct in new traditional building or not, and also about the building bylaws things. Now people know, and they like to follow bylaws, because they know the if we will not follow bylaws, what sort of things will happen if earthquake occur. So, willing to support bylaws, yes, 67%, no, 13%. Likewise, people were aware right now, and when we ask people, most of people, actually they like to go for modern building with frame structure. And we also have to convince them and make aware. We made several presentations there, and we gather people. Then when we explain about the economy of that, even not only aesthetic beauty, not only identity, but also we have added them to economy part of things. Then people of SANKHU were very much very much towards traditional architecture. They knew now the importance of identity, traditional architecture, and like they are very much to construction of traditional buildings. Yes, economy is there because tourism is one of the aspect for economy, and when tourists come, they will get opportunities, income opportunities. So people are very much towards conservation of traditional town, and they like to retain traditional buildings now. Actually, we have conservation laws and things, but still actually not enough to address people's economic perspectives and their importance. And what we found was lack of interest in the maintenance of traditional buildings. Those traditional buildings were collapsed, but it is not because I haven't brought here all analysis, but what was found was most of our people, we do not have trained to maintain timely, periodically, or in time. We construct houses, we stay there over our life, and if it will collapse, only if it will, started to leakage, started to fall down, then we will construct another or reconstruct. And another thing is, if we like to demolish that building and construct something else, we construct. But in the mean of time, periodically, we don't like to reconstruct, we don't like to maintenance. So, because of all those, like wooden truss, wooden these struts, joists, were all, all rotten, all very weak. Because of that also, those houses were collapsed. Actually, PDNA also said that cultural heritage should be done and there should be restorations of these cultural heritage buildings. And also, if further there's emphasis on owner-driven program, government has spelled out that owner-driven program, but government will support them technically. Technical support will provide by the government. And another is, the owner whose house was gone has economically very backward. They couldn't manage to do by themselves. And for construction, there is no such, after earthquake, many organizations and people came, visited, studied, made reports, but none of them came for, practically construct the houses. And another thing is, even in SANKHU, few buildings were standing, traditional buildings were standing, which stood even 1934, that Bihar earthquake, and also this 2015 earthquake. which is quite good. And those sort of houses we should need to study very well. And not only in SANKHU, also in other traditional towns, we found such type of buildings which were withstanding even from 1934 earthquake. So traditional construction technology is rich in terms of resilience against earthquake, as well as in terms of simplicity in the maintenance of the building, because if we have to maintain one element of the building, it is very easy to maintain that element without hampering other elements. We can pull out one and put another. It is very easy to maintain even. However, as investigated in this case study, traditional buildings failed miserably during the recent earthquake because of their old age and lack of maintenance for a long period of time. The underlying reasons for poor maintenance are, among others, what I have already said, that because of high cost of the conservation and the economic situation of the owners. And it also high cost, it cost high because if we will not maintain timely. However, the economic opportunities associated with the preservation of traditional buildings have not been properly or fully explored within community, within the people who are living there. They do not know the importance of conservation. That's why people said, oh, this earthquake came, it is very, not very good, because people were injured, people were, casualties happened, but still it is time to construct a modern houses and modern city. That's really very pity. And traditional buildings and traditional architecture should be maintained and conserved properly. That's why this presentation made for not only these experts like you, this presentation was made for people who living there, for showing them importance of traditional architecture. And I'd like to get feedback from you how to go for that and how we can make traditional old heritage live. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm sure there's some questions. My apologies to Apil. I forgot to mention you as one of the people here. Apil is also from the Tribhuvan University working on the project. Questions from the audience?
Hello. My name is Shrestha. I'm an architect. I'm pursuing masters in MIAD. So basically I'm from Delhi. I've done architecture from Delhi. And I was involved with a construction company that was dealing with this. We've made this Indian embassy in Kathmandu. I was involved in the construction of that building. So the time this fury actually happened, a lot of questions came up to us, and everybody was asking that what is the status of the building that you constructed. Even that building is under construction only. A lot of buildings have turned up because it's a huge complex. It's Indian Embassy complex in Kathmandu. So our building, it survived, and few claddings were there which came out, but rest of the structure was all okay. So what happened later was there was this entire committee from IIT Delhi. They actually, IIT from this entire department, they went over to Kathmandu to analyze every single structure. Structural engineer, architects, everybody visited there to see the structure. Everything was okay. Then they analyzed every single element of the building, and things were okay. They started finding mistakes in that. But my question is that in a building which is representing India, it was Indian Embassy in Kathmandu. These measures should be taken earlier in advance, but it happened later. So what do you think? I mean, what is your stand on this? That why these things happen later? Why don't these things happen in the beginning? Because it's a big thing. An embassy representing a country is a big thing.
Would anybody of the Indian Embassy like to react?
Well, thank you. It's very generic questions, and it happens everywhere. It's not only in Kathmandu or India or even Indian embassy. In general, South Asia or in case of Nepal, you will find that every 100 years or 80 years we are having elephant-sized earthquake. So we had in 1734, 1833, 1934. Then we have in 1988 we had a baby elephant-sized earthquake. And after that, actually, we had a lot of discussion in the country itself and in different other places about what should we do. Then in 1994, we had this National Building Code, which is supposed to be implemented in each and every buildings that are constructed within the nation, whether it is within the municipal area or whether within, the village area. Now, as far as embassies are concerned, actually, it is a diplomatic enclave. So these, buildings are basically termed as, state-of-the-art buildings, and they are supposed to construct by themselves, following the norms of their own country, or maybe from whichever country they belong to. So it's a purely, under the, premise of Indian government, but it's a general practice whenever you are resource-crunch country or developing nation. It basically we learn lesson from our mistakes, some disasters, then we start doing the things. It's never too late. Even you start today, it's good to start.
Thank you.
Ma'am, this is you said the traditional architecture, traditional buildings have failed, one instance. But the same instance you're trying to say that you're trying to protect, you want to preserve it, but isn't that kind of like forcing it on the people over there? No, in the sense that, say they want to move on, but then they've seen themselves, they don't feel safe in their own houses. To try to push it down, I'm just asking, I'm not sure of the context there.
Actually, good question. Traditional architecture is very strong and it has resilient characteristics. But people who construct, they do not follow all rules and regulations. They do not put any horizontal ban. They construct like anything else. Because of that also those buildings were collapsed. Another thing is people do not maintain properly in proper time. And those wooden joists, wooden beams are, inside very hollow. Only outside there looks like very strong because maybe termite eaten or very old. Because of that, those joists and these columns were all very weak. Because of that also, those buildings were collapsed. Although people do not know the importance of these because traditional buildings, repair, maintenance and construction is very, very expensive. Okay? Wooden crafts are there. Very, very expensive, these windows and doors. It is very difficult because your economic level is very low. Yes? And that's why they couldn't manage to repair, maintain. And it goes long and long and long. These houses which were collapsed were standing even in 1934, such a big earthquake. It was more than 8.4 Richter scale. They were standing that time, but collapsed only in 2015. Means it is really, really resilient technology which we have to follow. Okay? But buildings with concrete buildings, within 5, 10, 15 years or 50 years, they will collapse. It means people do not know about the importance of their identity, their architecture, culture, heritage, and they know only the business. If you build a skyscraper, you will rent it out and earn money. Such type of people do not like traditional building. Okay? And if they know the importance of traditional building, and for economic point of view also it is very, very good because tourists used to come, stay, bed and breakfast. They will earn more money than these rented houses. So we have to convince them, not force them. We have to give them aware about the importance of buildings. Then definitely we can conserve our traditional settlements, traditional houses, open spaces, lanes, everything. Okay, got my point?
But
Thank you.
I think it's a very good question. What is happening in Nepal much more is that communities have now community forest. Because timber has become very expensive. So if you have community forests and the timber that comes from these forests can be used for the maintenance of their own houses, the chances that the maintenance will be better is of course more.
And I just like to respond just very quickly. That's basically we believe in what we see, isn't it? So that's what happens, you know, if you look at the typology from the construction point of view in case of Nepal, you'll find that more than 80% buildings are rural buildings or stone masonry in mud mortar buildings, and very few buildings which are with engineering material without engineering input. And there are few buildings which are with engineering material, with engineering input. So the buildings that collapse, basically it's giving wrong kind of, you know, conclusion coming to the minds of people. So that people are believing that the traditional material, traditional constructions are not resilient to disaster, and probably mainly because that even in this big earthquake, most of the buildings which are engineered with engineering materials, they didn't collapse, which basically we engineers basically used to tell everyone every day that these buildings are going to collapse whenever there is a even baby elephant size earthquake, but they didn't collapse. So this is giving wrong, you know, impression, and wrong myth or wrong truth is being constructed, and basically this study tries to, you know, invalidate those kind of conceptions that are being created in the society. Thank you.
Hello ma'am, my question is to Sudha ma'am. Like you spoke about the traditional building, but what happened to the traditional knowledge? Like you didn't spoke about the traditional knowledge, because traditional building can be rebuilt without traditional local people is very difficult. So what happened to the local people? And I observed that in Nepal, traditional local knowledge is missing, because material is changing, climate is changing, and people are not aware about the new material and new techniques.
This is also a very good question. Actually, what happened was we can get very easily these cement, aggregates, and even masons. And it is not very expensive compared to these traditional buildings. Okay? So people used to construct. It is easy. And that traditional technology is slowly disappearing. Very difficult to get those masons who knows very well this traditional, technology. But it is not totally vanished yet. We have, and that's why government has to find out those people and give masons training to new generation so that we can continue our traditional architecture. Thank you.
I would like to share the experience of Ahmedabad in this aspect, that in the earthquake, or during the earthquake in Ahmedabad, none of the traditional buildings in the old city collapsed. And what happened was that people started feeling that these buildings are earthquake proof. And then they started mistreating these buildings over a period of time. They started extending them, they started breaking things without really understanding the engineering aspects. And since last few years, we are experiencing sudden collapses of buildings, and of course, so there is also this. It's really understood that these traditional buildings were resilient, but unless we understand the engineering aspect, and unless it is really brought into the modern engineering language, unless it's studied and published or really taught, this kind of misunderstandings can also be very dangerous, and like the situation in Ahmedabad at least is like a ticking time bomb for the next disasters. So I think.
Thank you. I think we club it with one more question from Bikramjit.
Thank you for the presentation. It's really nice to see from the experts who has worked from ground and shared their experience, which is really good and very learning experience for us. My just one observation, that is, I think the gap which is emerging right now, that is post-disaster devastation pattern, that kind of study one has to initiate, because I think I believe that there is a kind of a pattern one may find out at the end of the day, because all these traditional buildings or the architecture which is pretty old, they were there till that say such kind of a time, and now it is collapsed. So that means there must be a certain reason. So that reason one should explore and reinstate. And there is another very clear-cut clash between contemporary knowledge system of doing buildings and traditional knowledge system of doing buildings. And I don't think there is no clash actually, but the people, the common man, they are creating that kind of a bubble, and they are trying to polarize it that modern techniques are best and traditional techniques are not. I think here as an expert we have a role to reinstate the traditional knowledge systems and try to figure it out what are the kind of a significance we have in traditional knowledge systems and replicate wherever it is possible. But at the same time we should also allow the modern techniques and modern kind of approach which is earthquake resilience. So there is no fight between two different systems, but we need to figure it out where, how much, that kind of a stuff. Thank you. Yeah.
I just quickly want to add something. I think if I combine Kushusha's remark and Bikramjit's remark, we should very clearly not forget that there is a building material market. And that building material market needs to sell, otherwise it doesn't work. So if we would calculate the real price of, for instance, a bag of cement, you would be shocked how expensive it is. But somehow in our development models, with subsidies from governments who like to become more developed and more progressive, big subsidies are given to these materials. The same for the price of water. The real price of water is much more than you will pay. So the moment there is a, let's call it a development model that subsidizes a certain direction, it's very, very difficult to find that balance. And I think the problem of Homo sapiens and our own limited observations of that we only look at the facade or the visuals, or in Ahmedabad of course many pole houses have neighbors, so they in Nepal you have more freestanding buildings, so the forces also can be absorbed. I mean, I come from Amsterdam, but if you take in Amsterdam some of the canal houses away, they will all fall, but because they have neighbors they kind of still stand up. Professor Vias.
Thank you. I had a privilege to meet all of you in your own university with some of the students who are sitting here. We had certain discussions related to this, and that gave us a good site to go to Pokhara and also do some of our studies and came back and then done the compilation of those. So I would like to thanks in front of all my students and the colleagues. Generally, we are talking right now about the technology, the skill, the tradition and the modernization. One thing what I feel which is missing is governance. What is the role of governance? What government is doing? Is enough to have policies, enough to have some kind of rules and regulations? To how long we have to look towards this invisible hand we talk is a government. Okay. And second thing is that what is the role of we as a faculty member, professors, researchers, to deal with this government who is the policy maker but not able to make it more compatible the development per se. Let apart it is a traditional or modern or livable, skill-based, technology-based, whatsoever it is. Where are we lacking? What is the real problem comes to that we are not able to reach to that? Neither they are able to reach to that, and every one of us as a citizen is facing problem.
Thank you, ma'am. Of course, like I'll just try to respond to a few things. We have taken this, pattern study. We have analyzed, we have collected data of 80,000 buildings. For 10,000 buildings, we have already done the analysis and we have drawn the pattern. So this academia has done its role, it's fine. And there are a lot of things that academia can do, but academia is also driven by the market, as Professor Anna was talking about. If you look at the engineering school curriculum, you hardly find one of the magic, building material that we have, that is soil. We are not teaching about the soil and its characteristics and its use in our, soil as a construction material. So that's one of the one of the things that academia, engineering schools and architecture schools are lagging. That's one thing. As ma'am asked about the governance, I think this is the worst part the Nepal is facing. And as Anna said, that we do have a lot of freestanding buildings, we do have freestanding institutions without any coordination. So one institution is doing, policy, just they are bringing all those policies from the Harvard, and they do have very less connection with the society. There are other institutions which are supposed to, implement it. They are working at the ground level, and they think, they hardly match it, so they work independently. And those policies are not getting translated onto the ground. So that's the big, the big challenge, and of course, the reality. But you can't, say that this is happening, so you are not doing this. So somehow, somewhere we have to do it. Someone has to take the responsibility, and anyway, it's almost 1 year, 4 months. So down the road, and very few reconstruction has taken place. Maybe around 50 to 100 households have been constructed out of this more than 500,000 houses. So you can just see the pace. And due to this poor governance, but probably I don't know, we thought that after this earthquake, the governance will improve, because sometimes after this kind of disasters, the governance certainly, starts showing their interest and improvement, but it didn't happen. But there are a lot of things to be done.
Actually, yes, government is very lagging behind. We also had lots of problem in between, blockade and those sort of things happen. And government is also not very taken care of. Even they have made one door policy, and the NGOs who came to help, they are returning back. Millions and millions dollars are going back, but people are suffering here. Many people, they departed because of earthquake, and many people, they are departed from pneumonia because of very cold climate, and people are suffering even from flood and also landslide. And government is trying. They have established these committees, authorities. They are making policies. They are busy with those things. I don't know. They must have some sort of emergency policies. I am not very keen of those, because what they are doing right now, they must have some emergency policies so that they can act very, quickly. People, already 1 year, traditional, very interesting, very beautiful, artistic building, outstanding landmark building are, sliding like this, supposed to, collapse. People are going in under that building. How people are, tolerating. Now it will collapse, or later it will collapse, and raining, monsoon, and how it is possible. It's really, really tough for us. Yes, government has to, act very quickly, but still we are waiting for that. Thank you.
Hello.
Something positive. The reason why we were able to work, and we are still working on the 15th of August, we will submit the report to the United Nations. And the reason why we were able to work is because somebody, in this case the Joint Secretary from the Ministry of Urban Development, said this is too complicated for us. We don't know how to solve it. Can you, SEPT University, can you, Tribhuvan University, help us to find a model in this complicated situation? So I think sometimes it's easy to bash the government, and I would be the first one to be critical of the government. But I also think that many people in the government have studied at the same places where we studied, and it just takes 1 or 2 or 3 people within the government who can actually make a difference. So I think in that sense, on a small scale, we are contributing to taking some time to develop a better model, because of course that one village would only be one model, but there are 300 villages, there are 500 villages who could profit from this if the guidelines would become a model. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Soumya, and I recently visited Nepal in this May, and I went to Bandipur and I went to Kathmandu, and I visited the Patan Square out there. So that square is heritage-wise, and it's pretty important. And right now, renovation work is going on out there, the museum and the palace. So part of it is already completed, and part of it is going on. So I noticed, I'm from Jaipur, so Jaipur is known as a heritage city. So out there, we were taught that initially the construction of Jaipur was in lime, and when they did renovation work over it, they used cement plaster. And we were taught, and I don't know whether it's correct or not, but cement and lime do not go well together. So I noticed in Patan Square, what they're doing is, the construction I noticed is in lime and brick, lime mortar. And what they've done is they've used cement plaster over it, all over it, and the work is still going on. So I don't know whether that is correct or not correct, and who to approach.
Okay, yeah, just a comment about, what can universities do. I was at an exchange between a group from Japan who were involved with earthquakes and a group from Chile, and they were exchanging knowledge exchange about how they were dealing with their earthquakes and what was happening. And it was very interesting. The Japanese had a lot of money, and yet they couldn't crack it. They had a top-down government approach. The people from Chile worked from the bottom up, and they were extremely successful with groups of people going in, passing drawings around which were done by hand, newsletters, posting things, and they just had a very strong way of working. And despite having fewer resources, they were able to mobilize people very, very quickly, save lives, exchange technology. And I just think it's perhaps the place of an institution to do what it's doing today, which is to try to involve people in this kind of exchange about knowledge and different techniques. I think you're doing extremely difficult, complex work of which I know very little, and I'm filled with admiration for what you're trying to do. The whole thing about trying to conserve these buildings at a time when people are really, in dire straits and will look for an easy solution, and you need all the sort of backup and help that you can get.
I'm obviously endorsing what she says, and how lucky Nepal is to have you as a resource to be thinking and working for the common good. But just with respect to thinking about governance and government, and emphasizing what Mary Jane was saying, from the ground up, that historically, within the context of that landscape of Nepal, so much happened within the separate environments. Your landscape is such that so many communities exist independently or quite separately from each other, and have developed their own method of construction, of resource management, so typologies, use of materials and so on, is very site-specific, which has been a tradition that has been developed from place to place. So again, this idea that where does that knowledge go, and can you, as a resource, look back to site, look back to those original sources to start rebuilding, in spite of the fact of how many people might have moved and so on. But surely there's knowledge that must exist on the ground that doesn't, as it were, come from the top, but come from the ground literally up. So that's my question.
One of the problem that we have faced, during some of the work that we've done is there is a knowledge that exists in the community, and the way we have approached this reconstruction from the top, in the sense that the policies are not getting down to the people because of the limitations government have, and wherever we went and tried to work with the community, they showed us so many ways. For example, we went to a place called Mankha. Professor Ann was also with us, and we discussed there, do you want to resettle some of the people who were displaced from their village, and they did not have land to reside because the ground have failed. So they were willing to accommodate them in the reconstruction plan, but they had these expectations. They said, like, being very specific about it, they said, like, we have 5 sources of water that is there for past 20 past generations, and they said, like, if government can integrate, if government can develop that, and increase our economic capacities, then we would not mind to reconstruct and resettle people. And the way they were showing ways, government is talking about build back better, and take this as an opportunity to build back better. How do you build back better taking this as opportunity, unless you integrate it with some of the potential which were ignored earlier? So it was not taken care of, and the kind of approach government is taking is largely from the top, in the sense that they've not been able to reach out to the people and talk to the people. Everywhere I went, I was training these DDRMC members, and everywhere they said, like, okay, we want to go for this readjustment plan, land pooling or whatever, but how do we go about it? And what do we have to do? They are not being sensitized. That is the basic thing government could have done. During the sensitization, they would show you the way. They were telling me, why should we go for reconstruction, resettlement, readjustment plan when we have 10 houses only? Our settlement pattern is like 10 houses, and we are happy with it. All we want is, like, just improve some of those, infrastructure that we have, and make us some, community infrastructure. And why don't you go and concentrate in, area which have like 300 houses? There is where, this readjustment plan is needed. So when we work with SIPT university students also, when we are trying to do this cognitive mapping to understand how do they think, the way we see social reality from our perspective with our process knowledge is something different than what they see. And we're trying to, explore the phenomenological mind, how do they see this problem? And they were giving us amazing insights. Now this is what is like, lacking. So there is where, academia probably can fill in the gaps. So that is what I would think. And probably,
actually, I am not blaming only government, okay? I am not, because government also react quickly when earthquake occurred. All those traditional monuments, traditional cultural heritage, they tried in their best, to safeguard, because the Department of Archaeology belongs to these conservation activities, and they, they came, they guard, they provide security people, so that they will not able to those bad people will not steal or something they do, and also they protect through these net, so that people will not go inside those monuments, those sort of things. And also they react quickly to document our monuments. That is, yes, they did, but still lot to do. We have, our country is, people said like there are more temples than men, so it is really tough for them to, I am saying only they have to react quickly for reconstruction also. In reconstruction we are a little bit lacking, but saying that, again I am not blaming government, because government has given us opportunity to do these research. That is also one sort of action, but it is very smaller scale and smaller things, only that. And another thing is, government has given 17 varieties of typology of buildings. Our Nepalese trend is not waiting for government. We do ourselves, we manage ourselves, we have our own community, and we are not waiting for government. So people are starting construction even without taking any sort of permission. They have constructed their houses. Only the pity is, actually they do not know the seismic response to the building. They don't know how to put these horizontal and vertical bars and things. So it is pity, but it is it is necessary, because they also have to have shelter. That's why people are constructing, not waiting for government. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Can we give one final last round of applause? Tomorrow they go back to Nepal to continue the work. I will join them on Friday. One of our master students, Jagdish, is still there, and we'll keep you in the loop. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you.
Anna, before we're closing, I just want to respond to this beautiful lady's inquiry. Thank you for visiting this small settlement Bandipur, which is very less known tourism destination in Nepal, but is of course a very beautiful place. You might have noticed none of the building has had any damage in the small settlement. Very few. We have been to that place. Of course, I do agree with what Professor said about Chile and Japan, and of course, we are also working on that. Basically, in the countries like Nepal, you have only one option, that is the community participation. You don't have the resources, something like Japan, where you can bring everything and build a bunker, isn't it? So we do have only option. The problem with us is like government is also functioning in different constraints, and because it's our culture that is changing, and that is changing in such a way that neither we are following the Eastern philosophy nor we are well into the Western philosophy, and that's the place where basically we are caught in. And due to that, what happens? Neither we are following our own practices, and we'd like to see all those happenings from the Western kind of thinkings, that it needs to be in this way. But if you look at our own practice, you will find that we do have very long history of this community participation. In our own context, we are doing most of the things with the community participation. Government has already announced a lot of policies. Engineers are already placed in each and every village, and we do have a lot of prototypes, things. Only problem is like the conflict within the community itself, to build a consensus. And there we need a very, scientific kind of trade-off kind of things or facilitation, so that we can inbuild our scientific knowledge into traditional technology. So how we can bring those scientific knowledge into the traditional technology, that's the biggest challenge that we are facing. Thank you.